There is a silent truth about the universe that few consciously recognize, yet everyone experiences it in every moment. A truth so fundamental that, when understood, it completely reshapes our perception of reality and our power within it. Wallace D. Wattles, in his profound wisdom, revealed this truth when he wrote, "There is a thinking substance of which all things are made, and which, in its original state, pervades, penetrates, and fills the interstices of the universe." This is not an abstract theory or a vague spiritual belief. It is a scientific truth about the very structure of reality. Everything you see, touch, and experience, the oceans, the mountains, the buildings, the technological devices, your own physical body, is all formed from the same original substance, just organized into different shapes and patterns. And here's the truly extraordinary thing that Wallace D. Wattles understood. This substance is not inert or lifeless. She is alive, intelligent, and, most importantly, responsive to human thoughts. Think about this for a moment. The very fabric of reality, the substance that constitutes everything, is sensitive and responsive to the vibrations of your thought. Right now, as you hear these words, the original substance is present, awaiting your instructions, prepared to mold itself according to the patterns you mentally create. This means something profoundly transformative. You are not a passive observer in a mechanical universe. You are, in your truest essence, a creator within a living and receptive universe. Many live decades without recognizing this creative power. They observe their circumstances, reacting to conditions, believing themselves to be victims of a world that happens to them rather than creators of a world that responds to them. They wonder why certain people seem naturally successful, while others constantly struggle, without realizing that the fundamental difference lies in the understanding and application of this primordial law. The original substance was here before the first humans breathed. It remained constant as civilizations were born and disappeared. She has been present through every era of human history and changed, available, responsive. Like electricity that existed long before Thomas Edison tamed it, this creative force has always been within our reach, waiting to be recognized and used consciously. Some of the greatest minds in history, both recognized and anonymous, have intuited this truth. They realize that their thoughts seem to have a strange ability to materialize into their experiences. They notice correlations between their dominant mental states and the circumstances that arose in their lives. Some even developed methodologies to deliberately work with this creative force, producing results that seemed miraculous to outside observers. And this is what Wallace D. Wattles codified in his work, not philosophical speculation, but a practical science of deliberate creation. Imagine if electric lights were turned on for the first time in a village that had never known anything but candles and torches. The inhabitants would be amazed, thinking they were witnessing magic. But it wouldn't be magic, it would be science, the practical application of natural laws. Likewise, when you begin to work consciously with the original substance, the results may seem miraculous, but they are simply the operation of universal laws that have always been active. Consider, have you ever had a strong intuition about something that then came true? Have you ever intensely desired a circumstance that suddenly took shape in your life? Have you ever maintained a clear vision of a goal that eventually materialized, even when it seemed unlikely? These are not coincidences. They are glimpses of your natural creative power moments when, perhaps without fully realizing it, you have aligned your thoughts with the responsive nature of original substance. The question is not whether the original substance exists or whether it responds to your thoughts. These are realities verifiable through experience. The question is, are you ready to take conscious control of this creative process that, until now, has operated mainly behind the scenes of your consciousness? The original substance does not choose who to respond to. She doesn't judge whether her thoughts are good or bad. It doesn't decide whether or not you deserve to receive its manifestations. Like a perfect mirror, it simply reflects with absolute accuracy the dominant mental patterns you hold. This is the impartiality of universal law. The original substance responds to the thoughts of all equally, from the beggar to the monarch, from the saint to the criminal. The only variable is the quality clarity, and persistence of the thoughts sent to her. Think of the original substance as an infinitely sensitive magnetic field. When you send a thought, any thought, you create a specific vibration in this field. Similar thoughts, repeated consistently, create stronger vibrational patterns. These patterns attract and organize circumstances, events, and conditions that precisely match their frequency. Countless people have experienced this principle without consciously recognizing it. The woman who constantly fears rejection repeatedly finds herself in relationships where she is abandoned. The man who obsessively worries about money lives in a perpetual cycle of financial problems. A person who sees themselves as intrinsically valuable and deserving naturally attracts opportunities that confirm this self-image. Most attribute these patterns to chance, fate, or external forces. It's just my luck, they say. It's just how life is. And with those same words, you unconsciously reinforce the vibrational patterns that created these conditions in the first place. Wallace D. Wattles understood that these patterns are not accidental or predetermined. They are the precise manifestations of the habitual thoughts that people hold, their predominant mental states, their subconscious expectations, their deepest beliefs about themselves and the world. Here's what few understand. Original substance doesn't just respond to the conscious thoughts you deliberately choose to think. It responds to the totality of your mental state, including the unconscious assumptions, ingrained beliefs, and recurring emotional patterns that form the basis of your subjective experience. A powerful example: two people start the same type of business. Externally, their actions look identical. Both work diligently, apply similar strategies, dedicate comparable hours. However, one thrives while the other struggles. The crucial difference is not in the external world, but in the internal state of each one, in the thoughts, expectations, and beliefs that each one emits towards the original substance. The first person, even when facing initial challenges, maintains an unshakable confidence in their eventual success. She sees obstacles as temporary opportunities for growth. She maintains a clear mental image of the desired outcome, feeling it as already accomplished. The second person, although working hard, carries subconscious doubts about their worthiness or capabilities. She fears failure, worries about competition, and repeatedly questions whether her efforts will bear fruit. The original substance, responding to both with equal fidelity, manifests conditions and circumstances that correspond precisely to each dominant mental pattern. This is not mysticism or magical thinking. It is the precise operation of a natural law that works with the same reliability as gravity or electromagnetism. The difference is that while these other laws operate primarily in the physical realm, the law of responsive substance operates at the interface between thought and physical manifestation. When you truly understand this principle, a new realization emerges. There are no victims in the universe, only creators in various stages of awareness of their own creative power. This realization can be initially unsettling. It means taking full responsibility for your experience, not in a blaming or punitive way, but with the empowering recognition that if you unconsciously created your current circumstances, you can consciously recreate them in any form you choose. The original substance is always ready to respond to new thought patterns. No matter what conditions you have manifested thus far, you can begin today to establish new mental patterns that, with time and persistence, will completely reorganize your external circumstances. There's a vast distance between simply wanting something and truly creating it through the power of focused thought. This is the chasm that few can cross. The reason why so many get stuck in patterns of unfulfilled desire, while only a few consistently manifest their visions. Desire alone has little power over the original substance. In fact, desire in its ordinary form, that feeling of longing, of wanting something you don't have, often communicates precisely that absence to the original substance. When you intensely desire wealth, you are usually affirming your current condition of lack of it. When you desperately yearn for a relationship, you are essentially instructing the original substance about your current loneliness. Wallace D. Wattles made this crucial distinction. There is a difference between wanting an object or condition and being ready to receive it. Common desire focuses on absence. True creative power focuses on presence, on acceptance, on fulfillment already accomplished. Consider how the majority approach their goals. A person wants financial prosperity. She thinks about it often, imagines what she would do with more money, maybe even visualizes a bigger bank account. But underlying these thoughts are currents of anxiety, doubt, and worry. She constantly checks her current financial situation, feels uncomfortable when bills rise, worries about the economic future. These contradictory thoughts desiring abundance while simultaneously affirming its absence. Through words send confusing signals to the original substance. It's like pressing the accelerator and brake at the same time, waiting for the car to move forward. Another common example, a man wants to improve his health. He sets goals, maybe even starts exercising and adjusts his diet. However, he often examines his body critically, laments his current condition, worries about possible future illnesses, and doubts his ability to achieve the vitality he desires. Again, these contradictory patterns neutralize the creative power of your original intention. This is the great challenge. Most do not realize that their habitual mental states, their recurring worries, and their persistent doubts have much more power to shape the original substance than their occasional desires for improvement. Think of the mind as a garden. Desires are seeds that you consciously plant, but your habitual mental states are the soil, water, sunlight, and weather that determine which seeds actually bloom. If the soil is acidic with negativity, if water is scarce due to doubt, if the sun is blocked by worries, even the best seeds will have difficulty thriving. A woman lived in perpetual poverty despite her sincere desires for abundance. Outwardly, she did everything right, worked hard, educated herself, sought opportunities. But internally, she carried a deep belief formed in childhood that true prosperity was for other kinds of people. This unconscious belief, operating below the level of your everyday consciousness, continually instructed the original substance to maintain limiting conditions in your life. 4 years, she struggled, not realizing that she was working against herself, trying to build with one hand, while unconsciously destroying with the other. Only when it finally recognized and began to transform this underlying limiting belief could the original substance respond in new ways, gradually reorganizing its external circumstances to reflect its new mental pattern. This is the real work of conscious creation, not just desiring new results, but fundamentally transforming the mental soil from which all results grow. It's about identifying and reformulating the limiting beliefs that have unconsciously governed your relationship with the original substance throughout your life. Many look to techniques, affirmations, visualizations, external tools for manifestation. These have their place, but without addressing the underlying belief structures, they are like decorating a house whose foundations are cracked. The real work starts deeper, in the fundamental assumptions about who you are, what you deserve, and how the universe works. You must ask yourself, what unconscious beliefs am I holding that contradict what I consciously want to create? What habitual mental patterns am I allowing to dominate my relationship with original substance? What stories about limitation, difficulty, or unworthiness do I keep telling myself? These are not rhetorical questions. They are doors to a new level of relationship with your own creative power. By identifying and transforming these underlying limiting beliefs, you begin to close the gap between merely desiring and truly creating. Having understood the nature of the original substance and identified the internal obstacles to conscious creation, we come to the practical aspect: how to work scientifically with this substance to manifest specific results in your experience. Wallace D. Wattles, in his methodological precision, codified a 3-step process for impressing his will on the original substance. This process is not arbitrary or mystical. It is a scientific application based on the responsive nature of the substance itself. The first step is absolute mental clarity. You must know exactly what you want to create, not a vague notion or a nebulous desire, but a clearly defined vision with specific details. The original substance does not respond to ambiguities. It manifests precisely according to the standards you set. Many fail at this first step. They say they want more money without specifying how much, or better health without defining what that means for them, or a good relationship without clarity about their specific qualities. This inaccuracy produces equally inaccurate results. Develop the habit of defining exactly what you want in positive, specific terms. Not "I want to get out of debt," which focuses on debt, but "I want a monthly net income of X amount." Not "I want to stop feeling pain," which focuses on pain, but "I want a vibrant body with free movement and abundant energy." The accuracy of your thinking determines the accuracy of the original substance's response. The second step is emotional impregnation. It's not enough to think intellectually about your desired outcome. You must feel it as already accomplished. Emotion is the fuel that drives thought towards the original substance. A thought charged with positive emotional conviction has exponentially more power than a merely intellectual thought. Practice entering the emotional state you would experience if your desire was already manifested. How would you feel if you already had that prosperity? What emotions would arise if you were already in the ideal relationship? What bodily sensation would accompany perfect health? Cultivating these emotional states is not pretense, it is establishing the vibrational frequency to which the original substance will respond. The third step is aligned action. Your external behavior must be in harmony with your internal vision. Acting as if your desire is already reality is not self-deception, but vibrational alignment. How would you walk, talk, and behave if you were already the person who had what you wanted? What decisions would you make? What actions would be natural? This behavioral alignment completes the circuit, allowing the original substance to flow unobstructed through your experience. Actions incongruent with your vision create static in the signal, diluting its manifesting power. The critical element rarely discussed is the need to sustain these three elements: clear thinking, positive emotion, and aligned action with unwavering persistence. Original substance responds not to sporadic efforts, but to consistent patterns over time. Imagine planting a seed and then, impatient with its growth, repeatedly digging it up to check its progress, replanting it in different locations, or abandoning it completely after a few days with no visible results. Obviously, this approach would frustrate the natural growth process. Likewise, many sabotage their work with the original substance through inconsistency. They hold their vision for a few days, then, seeing no immediate results, return to old patterns of worry and doubt. They fluctuate between emotional states of confidence and discouragement. Their actions alternate between alignment and incongruity. This erratic pattern sends mixed signals to the original substance, resulting in equally inconsistent manifestations. Conscious creation is not an event. It is a sustained practice. It is a commitment to the disciplined maintenance of a specific state of mind, regardless of temporary appearances, until the original substance has no choice but to reorganize itself to match that state. Wallace D. Wattles emphasized the importance of unshakable faith, not as a religious concept, but as a mental posture of absolute certainty. This certainty is not based on current external evidence, but on internal knowledge of the infallible law of responsive substance. How to develop this certainty? Through study, observation, and experimentation. Study the principles until their logic becomes clear. Notice how consistent thoughts have already shaped your experience. Experiment consciously with specific mental patterns and carefully observe the results. By starting with smaller goals where your resistance is low, you can establish experiential proof of the manifesting power of your thoughts. These initial successes build the confidence necessary for more meaningful work with the original substance. The science of shaping substance is not esoteric or complex. It is based on simple principles applied with discipline and persistence. Clarity, emotion, and action, sustained with unwavering faith over time, inevitably imprint their pattern on responsive substance, manifesting in tangible form the vision you consistently hold on the mental plane. Most people drastically underestimate the power of their thoughts because they fail to understand the principle of support. Casual thoughts, even intense ones, have little impact on the original substance. It is the thoughts held consistently, day after day, that have true transformative power. This is the difference between throwing a stone into a lake, creating momentary ripples that soon disappear, and establishing a steady current that, over time, carves new channels into the landscape. Sustained thought not only creates a temporary impression on the original substance, it literally rearranges its structure to accommodate the new pattern. Consider the sculptor analogy. Michelangelo did not create David with a single blow on a block of marble. He worked meticulously, day after day, gradually removing everything that was not the vision he held in his mind. Each individual blow would have seemed insignificant to a casual observer, but the accumulation of these consistent efforts, guided by a sustained vision, eventually revealed a masterpiece. Likewise, your work with the original substance is a process of mental sculpting. Each conscious thought aligned with your vision, each deliberate emotion of anticipated gratitude, each congruent action when sustained over time gradually reveals in physical form the masterpiece you first conceived in your mind. A woman wanted to recover from a health condition that her doctors had declared chronic and incurable. Instead of accepting this prognosis, she established a daily practice of visualizing her body in perfect health, not just for a few occasional minutes, but several times a day. She mentally inhabited a state of complete vitality. Initially, there were no visible changes in his condition. Most would have given up, concluding that the approach didn't work. But she persisted, maintaining her vision of perfect health with unwavering determination, even when all external evidence contradicted that vision. After months of this consistent mental work, small improvements began to appear. First subtle, then increasingly evident. Within a year, to the astonishment of her doctors, she had completely recovered from a supposedly incurable condition. The critical factor was not the intensity of his thoughts or some special technique. It was his willingness to maintain a constant vision, regardless of temporary circumstances, for as long as it took for the original substance to fully respond. A man wanted to transform his financial situation, moving from a life of scarcity to abundance. He understood the principle of sustenance and took time each day to clearly visualize the prosperity he wanted to experience. Most importantly, he maintained this state of mind of abundance during his daily activities while working, interacting with others, making financial decisions. The results were not instantaneous. In fact, during the first few months, his situation seemed unchanged. But he continued, refusing to allow temporary appearances to shake his inner conviction. Gradually, new opportunities began to emerge. Unexpected connections were formed. Creative ideas to increase your income manifested themselves. Within 2 years, his financial situation had been completely transformed not by some miraculous stroke of luck, but through the natural response of the original substance to his consistently maintained mental pattern. The principle is universal, applying to all aspects of the human experience: health, relationships, prosperity, spiritual fulfillment, in each domain. It is the sustained thought that ultimately imprints its pattern on the original substance, resulting in physical manifestation. This explains why casual statements like "I want to be rich," "I desire health," or "I hope to find the perfect partner" have little manifesting power. They are easily overwhelmed by the habitual mental patterns you maintain throughout the rest of the day. Developing the capacity for sustained thinking requires disciplined practice. It's a mental muscle that strengthens with consistent use. Start by setting regular times each day to consciously align your thoughts with your desired vision. Gradually extend this awareness to increasingly longer periods of time, until the aligned state of mind becomes your default operating mode. The power of sustained thought isn't Magic Kid's mathematics. It is the cumulative effect of thousands of mental moments focused in the same direction. And just as small sums, invested consistently over time, eventually produce significant financial wealth through the power of compound interest. Small moments of mental alignment, sustained with persistence, eventually manifest dramatic outward transformations through the power of responsive substance. Between the moment you first clearly conceive a vision and its eventual manifestation in physical experience, there is a period of incubation. This range is often misunderstood, leading many to abandon the process precisely when they are on the threshold of success. The original substance always works through natural channels and along lines of least resistance. It does not operate through magical or supernatural means, but through the progressive reorganization of already existing elements to match the pattern of its sustained thought. Just as a planted seed first develops invisible roots before sprouting above the ground, your mental vision first establishes an invisible infrastructure before emerging visibly into your physical experience. During this invisible development phase, you may not see external evidence that anything is changing, despite the significant work taking place below the surface. This is the period when many abandon their vision, mistakenly concluding that it isn't working. They did not understand that physical manifestation is the last stage of the creative process, not the first. Before any visible results appear, a complete restructuring takes place in the invisible realms of causality. One businessman's experience illustrates this principle. After years of financial struggle, he discovered the science of the original substance and began to work consciously with it. He visualized his business thriving, felt the emotions of success already achieved, and consistently acted from this mental state of abundance already achieved for 6 months. Nothing seemed to change externally. Their circumstances remained the same. An outside observer would have concluded that his practice was ineffective. But internally, something profound was occurring. His perception was changing. His consciousness was expanding. His receptivity to new possibilities was increasing. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a series of opportunities began to emerge. A chance connection led to a crucial introduction. An inspired idea opened a new market segment. A longtime client returned with a significant project. In just a few weeks, his business was completely transformed. What appeared to be a sudden manifestation was, in fact, the culminating result of a process that had been underway for months. The original substance had been working all along, organizing events, inspiring people, and establishing conditions that would eventually materialize as the visible manifestation of its sustained vision. This pattern is universal. The writer who consistently sees her book published and well received may go months or years without external evidence, until suddenly circumstances align for her manuscript to reach the right person at the perfect time. The athlete who mentally rehearses the perfect performance may not see immediate improvements until, after months of internal work, his body suddenly demonstrates the coordination and skill he has been mentally cultivating. During this interval between vision and manifestation, your primary task is to maintain faith, not a blind or naive faith, but a trust grounded in understanding the inviolable laws of responsive substance. You must resist the temptation to judge the process based on the absence of visible results, understanding that the invisible always precedes the visible. Additionally, you must remain receptive to inspired action. Original substance often communicates through intuitions, spontaneous ideas, and subtle impulses to act in certain ways. These are not coincidences or random whims. They are the natural channels through which your manifestation is seeking expression. An important feature of this intermediate period is that the final manifestation rarely occurs exactly as you initially imagine it. The original substance, in its infinite intelligence, often provides something even better or more suitable than its original conception, remaining flexible about details, while keeping the essential core of your vision clear, allows infinite intelligence to work in ways that transcend your current perceptual limitations. There are subtle signs you can learn to recognize that indicate manifestation is on the way. Changes in your internal state, an inexplicable feeling of peace or certainty about the matter, significant synchronicities related to your vision, vivid dreams or revealing insights, changes in how other people respond to you. These are often the first indicators that the original substance is responding long before any tangible physical evidence. Learn to value and appreciate this in-between period, recognizing it not as a time of passive waiting, but as an active phase of development. It is during this interval that your own character and consciousness are refined, preparing you to receive and sustain the manifestation that is on its way. The patience required is not resignation, but an active quality of expectant attention, like a gardener who, having planted the right seed in the right soil, does not anxiously dig to check its progress, but maintains confident vigilance. knowing that natural processes are unfolding perfectly even when invisible. The ability of the human mind to shape original substance is neither a cosmic accident nor an acquired skill. It is a fundamental aspect of the divine order of the universe, reflecting the intimate and inherent relationship between consciousness and substance. This relationship has been intuited by mystics throughout the ages and is now beginning to be corroborated by advanced science. What these pioneers realized is that the apparent division between mind and matter is more a limitation of perception than a fundamental reality. At the deepest level, consciousness and substance are interconnected aspects of an underlying unity. Wallace D. Wattles articulated this truth when he wrote, "Thought is the only power that can produce tangible forms of original substance." This is not a poetic statement or an inspirational metaphor. It is a literal description of the mechanics of the universe. Human thought is not merely a byproduct of physical brain processes, it is a primordial force, a causal principle. When you understand this fundamental unity, a new perspective emerges. Your work with original substance is not an attempt to manipulate something external to yourself, but to harmonize aspects of your own expanded consciousness. Manifestation becomes not an exercise in control, but an alignment, synchronizing your individual consciousness with the universal intelligence that permeates substance. This is why gratitude plays such a central role in this work. Gratitude is not merely a positive attitude or a psychological technique. It is the recognition of the underlying unity, a form of direct communication with the original substance. When you express gratitude for something not yet physically manifested, you align your consciousness with the non-sequential reality, where that manifestation already exists in complete form. Consider the experience of a woman who, after years of debilitating illness, discovered the principle of unity between mind and substance. Instead of seeing her body as a separate entity that needed to be fixed, she began to recognize the unified field of intelligence permeating every cell. His practice was not to combat disease, but to consciously align himself with the pattern of perfect health already existing in the original substance. His approach was fundamentally different to the fight against the disease. She entered a state of direct communication with the intelligence present in her body, expressing gratitude for perfect health as a current reality, not a future one. This shift in perspective from separation to unity, from struggle to alignment, resulted in a recovery that his doctors considered impossible. This same underlying unity explains why certain mental qualities are essential to working effectively with the original substance. Clarity, conviction, and concentration are not merely useful techniques. They are states of harmony with the fundamental nature of substance itself. When you cultivate these states, you are not acquiring new skills, but returning to your natural orientation. It's like learning to swim. Water naturally supports the human body. This is its inherent character. An experienced swimmer does not fight the water, but works in harmony with its properties. Likewise, when working with original substance, you are not trying to bend or force a resistant element, but rather aligning yourself with its intrinsically responsive nature. The work of conscious manifestation is therefore fundamentally spiritual work, not because it involves specific religious concepts, but because it addresses their relationship with fundamental reality. It is a process of remembering and realigning yourself with your essential nature as an individualized expression of the same intelligence that permeates all of original substance. This understanding transcends the purely instrumental approach of many manifestation teachings. It is not simply about obtaining specific things or external conditions. Although this naturally occurs, it is about restoring your awareness of the underlying unity, allowing you to consciously participate in the ongoing creative process of the universe. When you operate from this expanded consciousness, your desires and intentions naturally align with the highest good. The question is no longer, what can I manifest to satisfy my personal desires? But how can I align my individual consciousness to more perfectly express universal intelligence? Wallace D. Wattles recognized this higher dimension when he wrote about acting in harmony with the laws of the universe. This harmony is not a limiting restriction, but a liberating expansion. The more you align your consciousness with the universal intelligence present in original substance. The freer and more powerful your creative expression becomes in this state of alignment. You discover that you have never been truly separate from the ability to create your reality. You had simply temporarily forgotten your essential nature and your intimate relationship with the original substance. The process of conscious creation is, at its core, a process of remembering, of awakening to the truth that has always been present. You have reached a significant crossroads in your journey. In the preceding pages, you have been introduced to a fundamental truth about the nature of reality. There is an intelligent, responsive original substance that forms the basis of all physical existence, and this substance responds unfailingly to the patterns of your dominant thoughts. This is not an abstract philosophical concept or a vague spiritual theory. It is an accurate description of the operating mechanics of the universe, as reliable and demonstrable as any physical law. The only difference is that while laws like gravity operate automatically without your conscious participation, the law of responsive substance places you at the center of the creative process, demanding your conscious participation. Knowledge, by itself, has little value until it is applied. Now that you understand the principles, the crucial question becomes, what will you do with this understanding? Will you continue to create your reality unconsciously, allowing habitual thoughts and unexamined beliefs to shape your circumstances? Or will you take conscious control of this process, deliberately directing the original substance to manifest the life you genuinely want to experience? The choice is exclusively yours, and no one can make it for you. But if you've chosen conscious creation, here's the path to get started today. First, set aside time daily to clarify your vision. Define precisely what you want to create in each significant area of your life. Be specific, be positive, be present. Write down this vision, refining it until it becomes crystal clear in your mind. Second, systematically cultivate the emotional state of achievement. Feel the joy, gratitude, and wonder that would naturally accompany the full manifestation of your vision. This is not an exercise in pretense, but a harmonization with the non-sequential reality where its manifestation already exists. Third, align your daily actions with your inner vision. Consistently behave like the person who already owns what you are creating. Make decisions from this expanded state. Respond to circumstances from this heightened awareness. Finally, and most crucially, commit to the sustained practice of these principles. Understand that you are reprogramming long-established mental patterns, and this requires persistence. The results will come that is guaranteed by the inviolable law of responsive substance, but they will come in perfect time and often through channels you could not have anticipated. As you embark on this journey, keep this central truth in mind. You are not trying to acquire a new power or ability. You are simply learning to consciously use what you have always had. You have been molding the original substance through your thoughts all your life, only doing so mostly by default rather than by deliberate design. The difference between where you are now and where you can be is simply a matter of awareness and applied direction. The same force that created your current circumstances can create entirely new circumstances when directed with conscious intention. The universe is not a closed or finite system of limited resources. It is an infinite field of potential, constantly responding to creative consciousness. There is no scarcity in the original substance. There are no inherent limitations to what can be manifested. The only restrictions are those that exist in your own consciousness. Get started today. Start now. Don't wait for ideal circumstances or some perfect future moment. The time to take conscious control of your creative power is always the present moment. The original substance is waiting for your clear instructions, and the entire universe is ready to reorganize itself according to the new patterns you establish. You are the architect of your experience. You are the sculptor of your reality. You are the focal point through which the original substance expresses itself in infinitely varied forms. When you fully accept this truth and begin to live from it, there's literally nothing that cannot be created, transformed, or transcended. The original substance always responds. It is always formed and will always form according to the thoughts in which it is imprinted. The only question is, which thoughts will you choose?